You will be aware that Liz Truss has sent a cease and desist letter to Keir Starmer, insisting that he stop saying that she crashed the economy. What would the word be? Her kind of source for this conviction is a character who is associated with the so-called Institute of Economic Affairs, which of course was widely regarded as having provided the what would you call it? The inspiration for the economic policies that Liz Truss introduced as Prime Minister. So two things occurred to me. The first is, well, she's going to look a bit stupid if she's ever accused anybody else of having crashed the economy, isn't she?
We need to find better ways of doing things and more efficiency, rather than wasting money and crashing the economy as happened under the previous Labour government.
Pardon? What was that last bit?
And that's what we need to do as a government. We need to find better ways of doing things and more efficiency, rather than wasting money and crashing the economy as happened under the previous Labour government.
Well, that's a bit awkward, isn't it? I mean, the narrative that the global financial crisis of 2008 was somehow Gordon Brown's fault was something that David Cameron and his cohorts were very keen to propagate, but it was objective nonsense. Anybody vaguely informed knows that Brown and Alistair Darling arguably did more than any other politicians on the planet to steer the world out of the worst impacts of that global financial crisis. But there is Liz Truss accusing Gordon Brown of having crashed the economy. So who did she rely on for her claim that the things that happened to the economy after she did things to the economy had nothing to do with her? She relied on someone called Andrew Lilico, described here as an economist and right-wing commentator. Now, he's linked to the Institute of Economic Affairs. How embarrassing would it be if two of the chief Herberts at the Institute of Economic Affairs had recorded themselves in the immediate aftermath of Liz Truss's budget saying that if everything goes wrong, it will actually be our fault? And that would be beyond possibility, right? There's no earthly way that even our clip mine would yield up such choice nuggets as two senior Herberts at the Institute of Economic Affairs actually recording themselves chuckling about the fact that if Liz Truss's fiscal event were to go horribly wrong, it would actually be all their fault. I mean, there's no earthly way that, I don't know, the then head of the IEA, Mark Littlewood, or one of his favourite colleagues, Julian Jessop, no doubt appearing later with Ian Dale on LBC, but there is no earthly way that these two characters would actually have recorded themselves saying that if Liz Truss's policies turn out to be disastrous, I don't know, i.e. crash the economy or something, then it would actually be all their fault.
Julian, what do you think? We're on the hook for it now. If it doesn't work, it's your fault and mine, my friend, isn't it?
Oh, well, fair enough. It's a nice problem to have that you might be blamed for major policy changes. But the key point is those policy changes, I believe, are the right ones.
But of course, those policy changes had absolutely nothing to do with what happened when those policy changes were introduced. So that's someone called Mark Littlewood and someone called Julian Jessop, both at the time of the so-called Institute of Economic Affairs, chuckling about the fact that if Liz Truss's economic policies, which they were widely regarded to have inspired, turned out to be a disaster, then it would be all their fault. Albeit that Liz Truss now, by citing another Herbert from the Institute of Economic Affairs, is trying to claim that it actually had nothing to do with her and therefore them at all. So what would possibly inspire someone linked to the Institute of Economic Affairs to produce a report arguing that Liz Truss's policies had absolutely nothing to do with the collapse of the UK economy, despite the fact that two of his former colleagues are literally on tape saying, if it all goes wrong, it will all be our fault? I suspect that you think I sometimes exaggerate about how nepotistic and ridiculous this network of secretly funded organisations and their patsies in the UK media and UK politics have actually become. And then I bring you little nuggets like that from the bottom of the clip mine. You won't be hearing or reading much about this anywhere else in the UK media, with the exception of the inestimable Adam Bienkov over at Byline Times, who I often bump into down the clip mine, and occasionally even I may even occasionally pinch some nuggets out of his cart.